Welcome back to the channel, Legendary Legacy, audiobook free daily, where you can enjoy the best books without spending a penny. Today, we will continue with the book, Thick Face, Black Heart by author Chin-Ning Chu. This is a book that teaches you how to apply the ancient wisdom of Asian philosophy and strategy to achieve success in business and life. We will proceed with Part 3, Dharma, the wish-fulfilling tree. This part will explain how to discover and fulfill your true purpose in life. The episodes of the channel are published on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast and other podcast platforms. You can search for our channel by typing Legendary Legacy, audiobook free daily into the search bar. Please support our channel by liking, commenting and subscribing so that we have more motivation to produce more audiobook episodes with the best and latest quality. Thank you for listening and have a nice day. The concept of Dharma. Dharma is the foundation that supports life. Mahabharata. The word Dharma comes from Sanskrit, the oldest language in the world and one which originated in ancient India. It has been confirmed by leading Western linguists that Sanskrit is the root of virtually all known languages and according to Hindu mythology, is the language spoken by the gods. Dharma came from the root word dhar, which means to support, uphold, and nourish. So, Dharma is often defined as that which supports life. It is the sustaining force of the world, the divine coherence of the universe. Dharma is the understanding of appropriate action for any given circumstance. It means to act in accordance with one's duty. Each person, depending on his station in life, will have a different Dharma. For example, a warrior's Dharma is to slay the enemies of his nation. A physician's Dharma is to save lives, even the lives of his enemies. These two actions, although completely different, are both correct. If Dharma is followed, the world will be in harmony with the natural law. Dharma is the foundation of thick face, black heart. In order to successfully become a righteous thick face, black heart practitioner, the awareness of Dharma must be constant in one's consciousness. Otherwise, as mentioned in Chapter I, you will become an unconscionable thick face, black heart practitioner who is willing to win at all costs but without any regard for the consequences to other people. Only by maintaining this awareness of Dharma will we begin to gain insight into what is required for proper discrimination in thought and in action. Dharma, your protector and liberator. People who practice Dharma accept life as it comes and perform their duty accordingly. Dharma is a natural law which guides us to recognize at any given moment the role each one of us is playing in life. Being true to the duty of that particular role at any given time and the very act of accepting and performing that action to the best of our ability, that is following Dharma. That act will become our protector and savior. The following Hindu story demonstrates the practicality of this concept. Two frogs, a father and his son, accidentally fell into a bucket of milk. They started swimming for their lives. They swam for a long time but there seemed no hope of their getting out. The father said to the son, "I am getting tired. I am going to drown." The son tried to encourage his father. "No, keep swimming, keep swimming. Something will happen. Have faith." So, the father kept swimming. But half an hour later, the father gave up and sank to the bottom. The son went on swimming. During this time the churning milk, whipped by his unceasing efforts to save his life, had begun to form a ball of butter that soon became solid beneath his feet. Using this island of butter as a platform, he managed to hop out of the bucket. He mourned, "If my father had just held on a little longer, he'd be with me now." Dharma works for humans just as it does for frogs. 17 years ago, Leslie was a teenager and used to help me clean my house in exchange for piano lessons. 5 years ago, I talked with her mother, and asked how Leslie was doing as I had not seen her for many years. It was then I learned this following fantastic story. The miracle power of Dharma. After Leslie graduated from high school, she began working as a bookkeeper for a small manufacturer. The company produced a certain unique component, and produced it better and more cheaply than anyone else. Not only did they sell this component all over the United States, they also exported the product to other countries. After working there for about 8 years, Leslie began to discover evidence which indicated that the company managers, the owner's two sons, were stealing company money from the sole owner, their mother. Knowing full well that it might mean losing her job, after all, it is not uncommon to shoot the messenger, she nevertheless decided she was duty-bound to inform her employer of her son's theft. As the owner never actually came to the factory, Leslie made an appointment to meet with her at her home. At this meeting, Leslie carefully showed the woman the books and other details which clearly laid out the extent and magnitude of the son's theft. Instead of shooting the messenger as Leslie had feared, this woman turned to her and said, "I want to sell this company and I would like you to buy it." "I have no money," Leslie said. To which the owner replied, "This is what we will do. I will set a value for the purchase of the company. You will pay me a certain amount of money from the company's receivables each month, over a 5-year period, after which time you will own the company free and clear." She then promptly fired her sons and had the paperwork drawn up for the sale. Leslie has now owned the company for years and employs her own mother as the office manager. In this story, Leslie and the company owner had both demonstrated impeccable commitment to their dharma. The company owner, who was also a mother, followed her dharma and dedicated herself to restoring the integrity of her company and at the same time, teaching an unforgettable lesson to her own sons. Leslie was willing to risk her livelihood in performing the job she was paid to do. Her dedication and courage as an employee was rewarded by gaining the sole ownership of a company, without actively pursuing it and without any capital of her own. This outcome was beyond her wildest dreams. Thick face, black heart practitioners are vigorous in pursuing the rightness of their actions. They question themselves in each and every situation, what is my dharma at this moment? Just as we have mentioned before, the dharma of a warrior is the opposite of a physician's, yet they are both correct. On the other hand, if a warrior refuses to kill and a physician refuses to save, then both actions would be insupportable. By being true to their dharma, their actions will be guided by the rhythm of natural law which will protect and support all their efforts. The grace of Dharma. The grace of Dharma works in subtle and mysterious ways throughout our life. John is in commercial real estate sales. He is hardworking, and always performs his duty diligently, but as it sometimes happens in this business, he went through a dry period. He spent an entire month carrying out his normal activities, lots of cold calls to prospects and visits to potential customers in an attempt to generate new business. All he got were rejections. John was so depressed, he decided he could use a little vacation and took a trip to Hawaii. Once there, he quickly relaxed at the beach and started to enjoy himself. Within a couple of days he ran into a fellow traveler who turned out to be a wealthy real estate investor. After all his hard work, and when and where he least expected it, he set up a very profitable deal. John was puzzled. All the hard work I did produced no results, yet here I am out playing, with work the furthest thing from my mind, and what do I get? A great client. Maybe working so hard is not healthy for business. What John did not know was that due to his hard work, the power of Dharma shined its grace upon him as reward for his commitment to duty. Dharma became his protector and liberator. Dharma of a debtor and a creditor. Financial misfortune happens all too often in today's uncertain economic arena. Previously stable individuals suddenly are unable to fulfill their obligations or repay their debts. If you should ever find yourself in this situation, after the shock of feeling helpless, ask yourself, what is my dharma? The dharma of a debtor in this case is to do the best he can do to show goodwill and intent to repay the debt. He must make the necessary sacrifices and adjust his lifestyle accordingly, without paying so much that he destroys any possibility of recovery. He must not deprive himself or his family of essential needs. On the other hand, a creditor's dharma is to allow the debtor to restructure the debt so he may continue with his basic living and have a chance to recover financially. He will therefore have the means to repay the original debt. I am not telling you something you don't already know. I merely relate this to you to illustrate the framework of dharma. A warrior's dharma. George is an important officer at the Pentagon. He participated in the strategic designs for the Grenada invasion, the takeover in Panama, and the speedy victory of Operation Desert Storm in the Gulf. From his outward appearance, he is a military man. Yet privately, he is a very spiritually minded individual. His whole life is centered around his spiritual commitment. Those who know about his devotion to the spiritual life have asked him, "How can you be in the military? How can you design the ways and means to kill people and still be such a spiritual man?" He answers, "It is my dharma to be a military man, just like Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. I too am a warrior." The Bhagavad Gita, or Song of God, is the most sacred of Hindu scriptures. Written in approximately 2000 BC, it is an epic poem which chronicles the battle between two branches of a ruling family over the succession to the throne. The old king, Dhritarashtra, scion of the Kaurava clan, decrees that his own son, Duryodhana, is less worthy to succeed him than Yudhishthira, the pure-hearted leader of the Pandava clan. Duryodhana rebels against his father's will and gathers the forces of the Kaurava clan to claim the throne by force. The Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between a great warrior of the Pandava clan, Arjuna, the brother of Yudhishthira, and the Lord Krishna, a divine embodiment of God, who is serving as Arjuna's charioteer for the coming battle. We pick up the story after the armies have been arrayed against each other, and just before battle is to commence. Arjuna requests that Krishna drive his chariot between the two armies for his last observations. Arjuna is the greatest warrior in the world. He has slain men, serpents, and demons. He has even conquered the god of death, yet when he sees relatives and friends lined up to do battle with each other, he is overcome with doubts. He cries out to Lord Krishna, "I see my kinsmen. They are all standing arrayed for battle. How can this be right for me? I do not long for victory, nor kingdoms, nor pleasures, because in order to gain these I must kill my own relatives, elders, and benefactors. I would not kill them even if it gained me the universe and beyond, how much less for the sake of the earth. O Lord, if the righteousness within me is destroyed, thy love for me would vanish, and thou wouldst abandon me. Without thee, my heart would be shattered with grief." Arjuna throws away his mighty bow and sinks down into the seat of his chariot, disconsolate. He is ready to renounce his family's claim to the throne. In his divine wisdom, Lord Krishna understands the dual nature of Arjuna's agony. It is as difficult for Arjuna to detach himself from the familiar feelings of compassion and familial loyalty as it is to make war on his cousins. Krishna counsels him to rid him of his false compassion. He advises him to fight the battle without anger or passion, but in fulfillment of his duty to himself and his country. The fight is not about the throne and the kingdom, it is about fighting to sustain the Dharma, the natural order of the world. The battle must be fought. Each one of us is a warrior in our own right. We are the warriors of life, and life is an eternal battle. We choose to enter the battlefield from the day we are born. We are committed to win the battle of life. Just like a warrior in the midst of the fierce fight, there is no way out. He can choose to fight courageously to ensure his survival and victory, or he can choose to get killed. We do not have to like the fight. We simply have to fight to the best of our abilities. To survive in life, we have to confront the inner negativities and the outer realities. I have a friend who is always complaining how hard her life is, and how hard her job is, and who is always hoping for a new profession that will be easy. She's a dreamer who is unwilling to make any effort in life. One time, during one of our chats, I mentioned that a literary agent has to read reams of unsolicited proposals and manuscripts. He has to decide who he will take on as new clients. He has to contact publishers and announce the new work he is representing. He must then follow up with the publishers and negotiate contracts with them. In addition, he has to try to convince the author that the deal he is presenting is a good one and try to convince the publisher they should pay more for their interest. He has to try to sell the foreign rights, movie rights, and recording rights and must simultaneously handle masses of problems between the author and publishers. All this takes place from the time a book is sold to the time the book goes out of print, and includes the complex management of his administrative staff and the multitude of menial tasks involved. An agent has to juggle all the balls in the air, often with many clients. My friend got the point and remarked, "I thought my job was hard." In fact, nothing is hard nor easy. Competition for survival is the condition of life. It is our dharma to fight the battle of life courageously and righteously. A soldier's dharma. During Operation Desert Storm, some soldiers refused to fight. They said that killing others was against their personal and religious beliefs. I thought this was nonsensical considering they had signed up voluntarily as members of the armed forces, whose main duty is to defend the nation when we are at war. There is a popular Chinese maxim, "A nation may support its troops for thousands of years to prepare for the few moments when they will be needed." When you sign up as a member of the armed forces, you give up your personal rights. It does not matter if you approve of the cause or the war. You do not have to like killing other fellow beings. Your dharma is to obey and perform your duty as you have been trained to do. The soldier's dharma is not to receive a monthly salary and hang around collecting GI educational benefits or to enjoy the glamour of traveling around the world, although these are side benefits. For thousands of years, the soldier's dharma has always been to kill and be killed in the name of defending the nation which they serve. The guiding force. Where there is dharma, there is victory. Mahabharata. Neil works for a structural engineering company. One day I received a call from Neil. He said, "My employer asked me to go Spain to oversee a project which we have been working on for nearly 2 years. I don't really want to go as I may have to be there for 3 to 6 months or even longer. I don't want to leave my girlfriend for such a lengthy period." I asked, "Can they send someone else?" "Not really," he said. "This project is my responsibility," I replied. "Then the decision is easy. As an employee of a small, newly established company, it is your dharma to support and serve your employer and make sure of the total success of the company. If I were you, I would tell your employer, it is my intention to serve you in any way I can. I will gladly go to Spain for as long as I am needed, as you see fit." And I added, "As for your girlfriend, you will just have to invite her to Spain to spend some time with you." A salesman's dharma. I, myself, had a profound experience while traveling in Taiwan on business. One of my objectives there was to represent a U.S. firm on a visit to their Taiwan representative. This Taiwan company had been doing a very poor job of selling the U.S. company's product. I spent a long time attempting to rehearse in my mind how I should approach the Taiwan company. Should I be casual and friendly or take a more official stand to find out why their sales performance had been so poor? I went through many ways to open the conversation, but none felt right. The problem was that this Taiwan company's owner was a dear friend of mine. Being heavy-handed or coming to him with a very light touch seemed equally inappropriate. During my self-inquiry, I was undecided. I asked myself, what is the dharma in this situation? I then realized the only proper way to approach the Taiwan company was to be open and direct and to find out how I, representing the U.S. company's interest, could better serve them. I should find out what their difficulties were. And how could I help? If I supported them in doing their job better, they would in return do a better job for my U.S. client. As soon as I realized what my dharma was in this circumstance, I felt totally open and positive towards these people. I no longer had to rehearse how to speak to them. With a proper attitude toward the situation, the words which came out of my mouth could only be right. Know thy dharma. I am totally convinced, whatever your occupation, you will do well if you can properly identify your dharma for that job. A chair, to be useful, must understand its dharma and be willing to let people sit on it. A pencil is only useful when the pencil carries out the dharma of a pencil. If the chair refuses to let people sit on it or the pencil refuses to perform its writing function, they are useless. When a manufacturing engineer is hired to create new products but insists on sharing his wisdom in accounting with the company controller, he is not going to last long in that company. The Adharma of Benazir Bhutto and Corazon. Aquino. The opposite of dharma is adharma, which is defined as going against one's proper duty in life. In my recent trip to Asia, I had an extensive discussion with a U.S. news agency Asian Bureau chief regarding the Philippine President Corazon Aquino and the former Pakistan Prime Minister, Benazir Bhutto. I asked him about his impression of both women since he had met them several times and followed their political careers closely. Among the many points we discussed, one interesting observation he made was that Bhutto and Aquino both inherited their political image from others, Bhutto from her father, Aquino from her husband. Bhutto is strong-willed, combative in nature, and often provokes confrontations with the opposition. She inherited her father's political popularity along with his political enemies. She made no attempt to soften the opposition's tension. Bhutto was removed from her office in August 1990. Aquino inherited her husband's image as the guardian of democracy for the Philippine people. At the time of writing, Aquino has already had weathered 7 coup attempts. She dealt with the rebels initially in a style of a democratic goddess, with a gentle slap on the hands. She told the rebels not to do it again. Although she survived the coups, they damaged her administrative and political credibility. She did not produce the promised better life for her people. Bhutto and Aquino had seemingly opposite styles, one hard and one soft. Logically, if the soft did not work, then the hard line should. What went wrong? Outwardly the two leaders were doing opposite things. In essence, however, they did exactly the same. Bhutto, in order to be Bhutto, had to be confrontational. That was the style of her father which she had adopted and her supporters expected. Aquino, in order to be Aquino, needed to be kind and benevolent. Such was the image of her husband which she had adopted as her own. The images that brought Bhutto and Aquino to power are no longer beneficial to them as rulers. Popularity does not feed starving people, nor does it secure their party's political position. Bhutto should have made peace with the oppositional forces. She should have gotten them to join her in working for the good of the land. Aquino should have been severe in her punishment of those who participated in the first coup attempt. She should have set an example for military discipline which would have established clear standards of reward for the loyal and punishment for the rebellious. Nature's law, unlike Aquino's, is that you must choose before you act. After an action is delivered, absolute consequences follow. A friend of mine who is a fervent Christian mentioned to me after he read this passage, unlike the Eastern concept, the Christian God is compassionate. My answer to him was, try jumping off the 13th floor and see if you fly. Will God change his law for you? Aquino should have given up her benevolent, mother-like image and concentrated on the business of reconstructing the devastated Philippine national economy. That was more important than laboring over the fundamental elements of governing, the internal stability of her government, and her own life. Both Bhutto and Aquino are women who labored under the burden of someone else's destiny. In Aquino's case, it was the destiny of her martyred husband; in Bhutto's, that of her executed father. Both of their failures came about because they did not exercise the powers of their office according to the requirements of their own destiny. Their actions were adharmic. Both betrayed their dharma, as the protector of the land and their people. The people of these nations who had supported them lost, once again. The American Pioneer's Dharma. As I was writing this chapter, the Solomon Brothers' illegal cornering of the American bond market was all over the financial newspapers. Whatever the cause of this incident and whoever was responsible for this, the answer is simple. These people were motivated by greed and driven by the intense desire for instant gratification. Perhaps the fault does not lie solely with those individuals who have committed the crimes. Rather, it lies deeply in the present American social culture. America as a nation has recently become obsessed with the idea of instant gratification. There is a popular saying, there are no free lunches. Ever so many people, especially during the past decade, have dedicated their entire energy in the pursuit of that instant gratification. When a nation begins to disproportionately place value on individuals who can generate the largest sum of money within the shortest time as a measure for success, the nation's character has to suffer. 200 years ago, America was founded by people of character who were true to the spirit of thick face, black heart. They understood the simple dharma of how to make a nation strong for generations to come. They understood the fundamental value of hard work and endurance. I often ask myself, what would America be today if 200 years ago, our founding fathers and early settlers were driven solely by the desire for instant gratification? Mrs. Chen's trial and error. Mrs. Chen was Japanese. During World War II, she married a young Taiwanese physician who was studying in Japan. She accompanied her husband to Taiwan. As the Japanese were not regarded as benevolent rulers by some Taiwanese subjects, she was not well received by Mr. Chen's family. A couple of years later, she had a child which unfortunately, by her cultural standards, was a girl. After the delivery she was told she could not have another child. Mrs. Chen was an intelligent and practical woman. Long-term planning was the pride of the Japanese and their trademark. Mrs. Chen had inherited this Japanese characteristic. She thought to herself that in order to secure her position in this family she must have a son, for only a son could take care of her in her old age. While she was raising her daughter, in her heart she was planning how she could gain a son. She talked over her concerns with some close Japanese women friends nearby. One of the women in the group was pregnant and already had 4 sons who were becoming financial burdens on the family. An agreement was reached. A son was born and Mrs. Chen adopted him. She had found the solution to her fear. 45 years later, times have changed. Mrs. Chen's daughter turned out to be an extremely capable young physician and inherited her father's medical practice. Mrs. Chen is now living with her daughter and son-in-law and has done so for the past 20 years since her husband's death. Her adopted son, who originally was supposed to be the solution to her fear, instead turned out to be the source of her fear and anxieties. He failed in school and became a compulsive gambler. He went through a great deal of the family fortune and borrowed money from unsuspecting family friends and relatives. Trial and error. To discover the right action at any given moment in your life is not an easy task. Even the best of people do not always know their dharma in accordance with destiny. Often we discover our dharma through trial and error. Saint Francis of Assisi, in his younger years, had a strong desire to be a martyr, so he traveled to Morocco, a Muslim nation that strongly opposed Christianity and one which killed many of its followers. Convinced he would be killed, Saint Francis instructed his followers to continue his teaching and live austere lives. After he undertook the long and difficult journey, he could not even get himself arrested. Although disappointed, he was wise enough to realize that a silent power was calling him to a different path. Obviously, the dharma of Saint Francis was not to get himself needlessly killed, rather to fulfill his destiny as a great teacher and spiritual aspirant. As we pursue a better understanding of our dharma through trial and error, we begin to fine-tune ourselves to recognize the silent voice of the universal will. Conclusion. Dharma is the natural law which guides the rightness of our actions and is the foundation of thick face, black heart. By pursuing Dharma, our life will unfold naturally and thus produce the proper fruit at each given stage of our life. By living under the grace and guidance of Dharma, life itself becomes the eternal wish-fulfilling tree. Summary of key points. Dharma is the understanding of proper actions in any given circumstance. It means to act in accordance with one's duty. Dharma is a natural law that guides us to recognize at any given moment the role each one of us is playing in life. Being true to the duty of that particular role at any time and the very act of accepting and performing that action to the highest of our ability, that is follow ing Dharma. That act will become our protector and liberator. Dharma is the foundation of thick face, black heart. Thick face, black heart practitioners are vigorous in pursuing the rightness of their actions. They question themselves in each and every situation, what is my Dharma at this moment? The grace of Dharma works in subtle and mysterious ways throughout our lives. Where there is Dharma, there is victory. Whatever your occupation, you will do well if you can properly identify your Dharma for that job. A chair, to be useful, must understand its Dharma and be willing to let people sit on it. A pencil is only useful when the pencil carries out the Dharma of a pencil. If the chair refuses to let people sit on it or the pencil refuses to perform its writing function, they are useless. For a truly spiritual individual, the path of spirituality is like walking on a razor's edge, it is a diligent pursuit of one's perfection. However, for some others, the pursuit of spirituality is merely a vague notion, it actually is a pretext, an excuse to practice inertia and avoidance of life's challenges. Nature's law, unlike man's, is that you must choose before you act. After an action is delivered, absolute consequences follow. The lotus offers its beauty to the heaven, the grass its service to the earth. Rabindranath Tagore.